Reverse engineering. Many electrical systems will only allow you to create the schematic first and then to do a panel layout afterwards. That isn't the case with AutoCAD Electrical. In fact, you can produce a panel layout first and then create a schematic from the panel layout. You can create a panel layout from an estimate. You can create a schematic from an estimate list or from an equipment list, maybe stored in a Microsoft Access database. And whichever way you come at AutoCAD Electrical, whether you're producing the panel layout first, the estimate, the schematic, everything will be completely linked. Moreover, after you've done a design, you can produce an Excel spreadsheet, as an example, modify the component tags, and then bring the component tags back into AutoCAD Electrical. Why is that useful? Well, your tags might be defined by the client, linking to maybe loop diagram tags that's been defined within P&ID drawings, as an example. So we'll start off in the first instance. We're going to start off in the panel layout, and there's three options here that we can really pick from. One is from the icon menu, one is from a catalogue list, and three is the equipment list. I suppose a fourth being a manufacturer menu. We'll start with the icon menu. If I select a component from the icons, and let's say we want a circuit breaker, single pole circuit breaker, even if we don't know the manufacturer and part number, we can still draw a rectangle to represent a device that we want to eventually have in our schematic. We can see obviously the component tags that we may have already drawn within our schematic. If I want to define a new tag, we'll just call it Q50 as an example. I don't have to assign the manufacturer and part number at this stage. And of course you'd expect that part now to be available within our schematic. Well, let's take a look. So going into a schematic, choosing the schematic ribbon, we're now going to select from the panel list and you'll see Q50 has become available. Now remember, we didn't assign a manufacturer and part number, so therefore it has no idea as to what symbol this is going to be. Notice you've got the option of here of use auto-generated schematic tag or use panel footprint tag. Well, I'm going to select panel footprint tag because this is the tag that was defined within the panel footprint drawing. If I go insert, because it doesn't know which symbol I want to choose, I've got to select icon menu. And of course at this stage I could select breaker, single pole, and any information that I've typed in within the panel footprint has automatically been fed into the schematic, and X has marked the spot. Now the other item to mention here is if I edit this item and alter its description or alter the manufacturer and part number details, of course it will automatically update the panel footprint drawing as well. If indeed I change the manufacturer and part number, of course, what it will do is it will have a look at the correct footprint and will automatically prompt you to change the footprint if the footprint from the manufacturer is different from the footprint that you've got on already. So that's drawing from an icon menu. We're now going to draw from a catalogue list. Now with a catalogue list is a Microsoft Access database. We can add and pre-fill new records with values from the highlighted entry if we wish, or if we just cancel out of that, we can edit it with one of the existing examples. So you'll see here you've got a single block, and this is browsing to a block called an APBB3.dwg. Let's have a look. So all that is browsing to panel metric, Allen Bradley, push buttons, and an APB3.dwg. So this is the symbol I want to insert. You'll also notice that the manufacturer has been defined, but also the WD block name is going to equal PB11. Now you might not recognise what the PB11 is, but if this was a vertical switch it would be called VPB11, or if it was a horizontal it would be called HPB11. We don't have to put the V or the H in this value. So what this is going to automatically do, by defining in a catalogue list that the block name equals PB11 for this particular type of component, it will automatically find and provide us with at least VPB11 or HPB11 as the schematic symbol block. You'll also notice that the description is called push button, and that's quite an important factor as well, which we'll come on to. We'll say OK, and as you can see the footprint appears on the end of my cursor. I'll place this down, and I'm just going to call it S100 as an example. It's pulled in the manufacturer details and we can say accept. Let's see how we can insert that back in the schematic. Well, again, it's the same function. It's inserting from panel list from the schematic. And you'll see that S100 is now in our list and it hasn't been placed. Again, I'm going to use panel footprint tag rather than the auto-generated schematic tag, and as I insert it, this will automatically offer me at least PB11 as it did, as I mentioned earlier. As you can see though, it's offering me a few more options, and I'll come round to that in a moment, why it's offering me the additional options. So I'm just going to say OK. And you can see as I place it down, of course, S100, it's fixed, the manufacturer and part number as defined within the panel footprint. Again, any changes made to here will automatically update within the panel footprint drawing. The third option that we've got is you can obviously insert from equipment list. Now, equipment list is an Excel spreadsheet as an example, but it could also be a CSV or a Microsoft Access database. In this instance, I'm going to use an Excel estimate. Let's have a look at the Excel estimate. The Excel estimate is quite literally just manufacturer, part number and a description of what the component is. This is effectively the description that can be filled into the description 1, 2 and 3 fields if I wish. Let's close this file down. So I'm going to open this up. For the first time of asking, we don't know the settings, so we have to select default settings. We can then map what the settings are to AutoCAD Electrical. So in other words, column 1 is the manufacturer, column 2 is the catalogue, column 3 is the description. Once you're happy with the settings, you say save, and you save these settings out to your desktop or wherever you wish it to be saved. Alternatively, if this is the second time that you're doing it, once you've saved it, you can read the settings and you point it to your settings file, which in my instance is on the desktop. And you can see it's automatically recognised that column 1 is the manufacturer, column 2 is the catalogue and column 3 is the description. I'm happy with that. We'll say OK, and it offers me a list of parts. If I pick a part, such as this item here, even though it's only got the manufacturer, the part number and the description, when I insert it, it will automatically find the correct footprint, and that's because of the footprint database file editor. It's pulled in the description. Of course, that goes to uppercase as soon as I click any other field. If I want to give it a description or a tag number, we'll just call it K1M as an example, and we'll say OK. So you can see now that item has got a description here assigned, a tag here defined, and we'll just close. So we've added that item in. Again, what happens now with the schematic? Well, let's go back to the schematic. And you can just click on this panel list again, reload. and K1M is listed as an item that hasn't been placed. When I place this particular part down, of course it automatically picks up the fact that this is going to be a VMS1, and I'll explain why in a short period. But as I place it down, K1M, start contactor, say OK, and again this is bidirectionally linked back to the panel layout. So, as I mentioned, that automatically offered me a block called VMS1. When I placed the push button down in the schematic, it automatically offered me a VPB11 or an HPB11 as the option for the switch. Why did it know, and how did it know, which schematic symbol to associate with that particular part? Well, there is what's known as a schematic database file editor, and the schematic database file editor holds that type of information. So as an example, the Telemechanique LC1D09106F7 that we've just placed had a schematic block name of VMS1. It could, however, have just had MS1. It doesn't need the V or the H at the front. It will automatically pick up whether it's V or H depending on the drawing properties. So this is how it recognised what block to place. What about if it was just a generic push button where you hadn't actually defined the manufacturer and part number, or the manufacturer and part didn't exist within AutoCAD Electrical but existed within the estimate? Well, what you can do is you can define anything with the word push button or PB in its title will automatically pick up a block name called HPB11 or VPB11 as an example. Or anything with push button or PB might pick up HPB12. So in other words, all different potential options. Let's just quit. So we mentioned right at the start you can draw a schematic from a panel layout, which we've done. We're now going to draw a schematic from an estimate or from a catalogue list. Well, we've already shown catalogue list on panel side, so we'll show equipment list again. So I'll select equipment list, we'll say open, it's the same equipment list. We can read the settings, of course, from the same settings file that we created earlier. And we can say OK. So again, it recognises Telemechanique and etc, etc. So what happens if we place this particular part which doesn't exist? Acme XYZ123 isn't a manufacturer and part number within AutoCAD Electrical's database as an example. In this occasion we are using the auto-generated schematic tag because it hasn't been drawn in the assembly drawing. If I insert, it automatically, because it had the word push button in its description, offered me the options of HPB1, HPB12 and so on and so forth. Again, if I select a particular symbol and we say OK and we place it down, notice how it pulls in the description, the next available tag, but the manufacturer and part number information from the Excel spreadsheet. OK. Now, of course, the same can apply with a catalogue list, and we can place components down from a catalogue list. So if I place a particular part here, I can say OK, it automatically knows which particular terminal symbol to use. Now, that just shows you how you can create a schematic from an estimate or from a catalogue list, or indeed from another database, another project's database list of parts. We've also shown how we can create a panel layout from an estimate or just by placing parts down and then drawing our schematics afterwards. We're now going to show how you can manipulate the tags and any piece of information that you wish externally with AutoCAD Electrical and then import the data back in, the revised data back in. Extremely useful for things like PLCs or where you're tallying up to the customer's existing tags, maybe in a P&ID circuit. So what we've got the ability to do is import, export to spreadsheet, I'm just going to export the component tags only. We're going to export the component tags for the project to an Excel spreadsheet to my desktop. Just open up Excel, and this is our information. Now most of this information, barring the actual handle field, can be deleted. You can delete additional fields out. I generally don't though. I generally hide the information like so if I don't want a client seeing this information. So it doesn't matter whether you delete or hide, but personally I prefer hiding normally. So you can see you've got the tag names, the descriptions, etc. And we might wish to make a change. So just as an example, we've got a device called C60HP316 called Q1, which is, I'm assuming, on the first page. What we can do is type a description in here. So this might be my contactor or my circuit breaker. And if I type a description here, we can import this data back into the schematics, importing the revised descriptions and manufacturer and part number detail. As an example, we had the S100 switch that we placed down earlier. We also had the Q50 component that we placed down earlier. If I wish to add a manufacturer and part number now, this is information that I'm going to get it to annotate back into the schematics and panel layouts. So we've made some changes to our Excel spreadsheet. We'll save the changes and go back into our drawings. I'm now going to select Import Export Data ribbon again, but this time from Spreadsheet, Import from Spreadsheet, point to the same spreadsheet. You can actually flip any updated tagline numbers values to be fixed, so it means that they can't be inadvertently changed. If I right click over this device, you'll see that Q50 has the modified manufacturer and part number details that we manually typed in. And also if I just use the SURF facility and search for component Q1, the description text that we changed within Excel has automatically been updated in the schematics and the panel layouts.